Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're here to celebrate the 2020 Artios nominees. So to get us started, will everyone please go down the line and introduce themselves and then mention the project or projects you've been nominated for?
Me first?
Yeah.
Hi. I'm not a microphone person, sorry. My name is Schiavone. I'm a casting associate. I was working with casting director Howard Meltzer when we were nominated for Bunk'd on Disney Channel season 3. I think I did everything.
Hi, my name's Amber Horn, and my partner Danielle and I are nominated for Andi Mack. I'm not sure what season, we did all the seasons, and then only season 2 of Raven's Home.
I'm Danielle. Hi. What she said.
I'm Barbie Block with Steiner Block Casting, and we are nominated for Alexa and Katie season 2 on Netflix.
Thank you again for joining us, and congratulations on your nominations. To get us started, will you all tell us how you got into casting? Anyone can start this time.
Sure, I'll start. I always wanted to be a casting director. I used to watch Full House when I was a kid, and I loved watching the smaller roles, like the guest stars and the co-stars, but I did not know that a casting director was a job. Much later in life, when I was in college, I was a business major, switched to film, and I nominated myself as the casting director on our senior film project, and nobody voted for me. Yeah, true story. They voted me as a producer, and then when I came out here, I was working in development, and I got to see a little bit of what casting directors did. And then the opportunity came up to work for a casting director, and my first project was a Bruckheimer 1-hour TV show, and that casting office I worked for like 7 or 8 years. That's where I met Danielle, and we're on our 10th year as partners.
Wow.
I can't believe you guys choose to stand on a stage with lights on you for your profession.
Maybe you know how he feels like.
Yeah, I don't know why you do it. I truly don't. I started in casting because I thought I wanted to be an actor. I was just telling these guys. And then I saw myself on camera and said no. And I always noticed Marion Doherty's name in every movie, every good movie ever. And I was just curious about it, and it seemed like a dream job. And I had a few other career paths, and very long story short, found my way into casting in New York, and then moved to LA thinking I needed some TV credits, so I'll move here for a year or two, and that was 2005.
When I moved out to LA from Philadelphia thinking I wanted to be a producer, I didn't really know what a producer meant. So I looked in the Los Angeles phone book under production, and there was Barbara Clayman casting. So I cold called Barbara Clayman. I said, I'm a hot shot. I had produced a TV show in Philadelphia, and she said, oh, come and, come and meet with me. So I showed up in my pink, legally blonde suit. And I sat in the waiting room with Jared Leto and a few soap opera stars. And I said, this is it. This is for me. And so she, on the spot, said, you may have been a big deal in your other life, but you don't know S about casting. Be my free intern. And she was absolutely right. I had no idea how the town worked, but on day 1, I was sitting on the floor as an intern, and sitting across from me on the floor wearing white pants was Edie Belasco. And she was temping, and I thought, boy, she had it right. She was getting paid, I was sitting there. But about 6 months later, or no, actually 6 weeks later, somebody quit in the middle of the night, and Barbara said, get Bobby in here. And that was my first job, and I've been here ever since.
I went to a film school, and everyone was a writer and a director and a producer, and let's make a short, but we weren't friends with the actors. So we didn't have anyone to pull, and then we decided we could do this. Let's just rent a room on campus, and I decided I could run an audition. Led to an internship with VH1, doing those 40 greatest viral videos 10 type shows. From there, I came out here and I interned at NBC, where they made me a temp and taught me a ton. And then, surprisingly enough, my first freelance job actually was Bunk'd season 1 with Howard Meltzer, and he taught me pretty much everything I know, got me to this point.
That's a great lead into my next question. From your starts, fast forward to now, how did you get involved with the projects that you're nominated for? Sal, you already mentioned it a little bit. Do you have anything you want to add?
stuck around from season 1 to season 2 and then season 3, and here we are. When you find someone who's really good to work for, you stick around and let the work come to you. Yeah.
Well, for Raven's Home, Michael Feldman had worked with Raven Simone way back in the day when she was had her first show, the original show. So we worked with him on Nikki, Ricky, Dickie, and Dawn. He was one of our executive producers. And I was actually very sick at the time in the hospital. And he came to my hospital room and he was like, I really want to go do Raven's Home. Can you girls do it? And Danielle's like, oh, we're not doing it with just by myself. I want to do it with you. And so fortunately I got better and we got to do that season with him. And they just did that one season together. So that's how we did Raven's Home. And Andi Mack, go ahead, tell the story.
Is there a story?
Remember she hired us without meeting us over the phone?
She met, yeah. Terry didn't think she liked blonde people until she met Amber.
Or people named Amber. Right? Yeah.
There's a girl, if you ever watch Andi Mack, there's a character named Amber who's kind of like Andi Mack's nemesis.
Like a mean girl.
Until Terry met Amber and knows that she's a Disney princess.
No,
and
I'm
she
just
changed
not
her
mean.
mind on blondes for life. But we talked to Terry and then
yeah, she
got
hired us
along
like sight
gangbusters.
unseen just
Yeah.
on the phone, and then she ended up casting a girl to play this mean girl, and then afterwards she's like, I'm so sorry, her name's Amber, I really thought they were all mean. But yeah, they're not.
Lex and Katie was a great experience, and we were brought in. Matthew Carlson, who we worked with on Malcolm in the Middle, brought us in, but we didn't know he was bringing us in. We got a cold call from Netflix, and they said, we have this wonderful script. We'd like you to read it. We're attaching a showrunner. We can't tell you who. And so we read it. It was a beautiful, beautiful script. We wanted that job more than anything. But more than that, Sally and I kept going, well, who could it be? Could it have been him? And, Matthew had gone back like 8 or 10 years. So it was wonderful that he remembered us and brought us in. And that's how we got the job.
You've all been singled out for your excellence in casting. How do you find the perfect fit for each role?
A lot of digging.
That's really it. It's a lot of digging and a lot of remembering.
Yeah, and searching. I can speak for all of us. We'd search all over the world for leads of shows. We have people go on tape all over the world for our movies and shows. So I think all of us can say we love discovering people and giving them their first job. We never want to be in a meeting and someone say an actor's name and we don't know who that person is. So we love watching. We watch every single tape that comes to us that we've requested. And yeah, that's part of the fun. I think that's like the nerd side of us, of the casting part, that we love so much.
Yeah, and going into a series regular search on a youth-oriented show, resumes aren't really a thing because children, and teenagers maybe took an acting class at school and liked it and didn't get into it professionally yet or whatever. Anyone could be that star. So it's really uncovering every single stone that we can.
Can you articulate what that gut feeling is like when you find that right fit for the role?
Chocolate cake, literally, it's that super exciting moment where you feel it literally in your stomach, this is happening, this is it, and you walk out of that room after and you're like, yeah, that's the person.
And then they don't get approved.
Yeah, that can happen when they walk in before they've even started talking. You get the essence of that person. And you're like, oh my gosh, please let them be good. Please let them be good.
You're holding your breath going,
yes.
please, please, please.
Because there's just an essence. They're like the character. I say a lot of times, especially as children, at this point in your career, you're not going to play Abraham Lincoln. You're going to play things that are similar to yourself. So, for example, if you're playing, the character is homeless, hopefully you have never experienced homelessness at this point in your life, if you're 10 years old, for example, but you know what it's like to be hungry, you know what it's like to be scared, all these things that are similar, right? But at this point in your career, you're not going to most likely be in a biopic to play a character like Abraham Lincoln, for example, right? So you're usually coming in to play roles that are similar to you, right? Does that make sense? So oftentimes when you come in and you're similar to the character on the page that we have, then we're like, oh, please be good, because you're in our minds of what we think this person's supposed to be like.
We have just been joined by Krisha. Do you mind introducing yourself real quick and just mentioning the project you've been nominated for?
Is it on? Yes. Hi, I'm Krisha Bullock, one half of Bullock and Snow. She's behind me somewhere. There was a lot of traffic coming over the hill. We are nominated for Henry Danger, which is the longest-running Nickelodeon kids show in history.
Congratulations on your nomination, and thank you for joining us. Is there a particular actor or role on these projects that stand out as a casting choice you're proud of?
Literally all of them. We're so proud of everyone on all these shows.
You know, they become our babies. We always say, you know, from a one-line role to a series regular, I don't think actors always know that we're on the sidelines going, oh my gosh, he got that. And you know, you don't always realize. And so for us, you know, we bring in actors and we want them to feel at home with us. You know, we want them to feel like they're our babies.
I have a question for Amber and Danielle and Barbie especially. There's been kind of this trend in these young actor-oriented shows where they've been covering heavier topics, such as Mack, which covers mental illness, gun safety, adolescent sexuality, and Alexa and Katie, which covers, you know, cancer and the lead character Alexa. When you are casting these characters, is it difficult, or do you have to do a more extended audition process to try and find actors that can cover both the comedic timing and the seriousness of the show's topic?
Well, we had a heads up with Mack. We knew early on where some of the storylines were going to go, even before we started the series. Danielle and I were lucky enough to see an independent film that Joshua Rush had been in about tennis. So when the role came up, we knew this character had a gay storyline that we were really excited to tell. He passed initially on the role, so I called and begged him to come in. And he said he'd come in for a meeting, and he came in and he met with Terry, the creator, and I was in the room. And then he told a story about a friend who he knew who was going through some similar stuff, and then he decided to read. So then when we took him to Disney for the producer session, everyone fell in love with him and he got the role. Like Barbie was saying, we were cheering him on. It was so cool a couple years later to see the storyline be told, because it wasn't told, by the time we start the pilot, by the time it airs, it's like a year and a half before, you know, that episode actually comes out, and this was like at the very end of season 1. So it was really cool to see that story be told, and then the way that the public responded to it was really cool to see, like, the first young boy be able to have. And
also, to answer your question, we went through a lot of people, and because we had to give that heads up, there was passes, not everybody was up for it. So that's kind of why Amber really reached out to Joshua, also because he's such a great actor, and we knew he'd understand. And
finding the right person who is at that young age willing to tell that story and be willing, you know, as the actor to tell the story, and then also deal with social media and everyone who was reaching out to him and become a voice as well, which has been really awesome.
That was one of the reasons we really wanted to be a part of the show, was because we thought it was a big deal for Disney to be making that statement.
And with Alexa and Katie doing a multicam sitcom about cancer, you know, people were like, what is this show going to be? And a lot of it is a show about friendship. So in reading the actors, the comedy was absolutely important, but you had to buy the drama. You had to believe that Alexa had really gone through this. And kind of a funny story about Paris Burrell. We had her set up for a producer session, and we were working out of this huge commercial casting because they didn't have office space for us. And I spot this beautiful girl like way far away, and it was like a little kid commercial audition. So I never will approach a child. So I go up to the mom and I said, is your daughter an actress? And she said, yes, she is. In fact, she's coming in for you tomorrow. And she was already a Disney star, Paris, but I didn't really look at her aside from the fact that, you know, I saw this beautiful girl, and then I grabbed her and I said, hey, you want to come run it? She's like, sure, I've never looked at it. And then she came in and she was magnificent. And then we had to cast her counterpart, and Isabel May was heads and tails above anyone. And the most beautiful thing is that Isabel had never been in front of a camera before. She had done theater in school, but to be able to give her her first job and to have them create what could only be described, in my opinion, as magic, it was really thrilling.
How do you pick a piece of copy that they even audition with when you have to see so many different things from them?
Well, in that case, you would pull sides. Most of the time, we consult with our producers on the sides. We'll pick the sides, and then we'll go over them. And you try to pick sides that are going to show a different emotion, a different color, anything that can show different things between the scenes. You don't want to have 2 or 3 scenes that are playing the same emotion.
We're being joined now by Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Welcome. Real quick, will you introduce yourself and mention the project you're nominated for?
Hi, the awkward Bullock and Snow who can't be on time apparently. Yeah. Were you on? Were you here when it started? No. Okay, great. Just making sure. I'm Jamie Snow. We are nominated together for Henry Danger. Did you ask me another question besides that?
No, thank you so much for joining us
Great.
and congratulations on your nomination.
Thanks.
Question for all of you. Those of you who've worked on a show, I guess, over numerous seasons, how has your process changed over time?
Longest running show, you guys.
Oh boy.
The casting process? Yes. Changed? Well, I mean, when you're casting for a series lead, it's a different process to begin with because you're looking for somebody who has embodies the character in a way that you can see it growing with them, but also somebody that can handle, especially a young person that can handle the weight of working virtually 6 days a week for extended periods of time. And you continue to look and look and look and search and search and search versus once you get into the guest cast, the search is a little shorter.
Yeah, and I think also something when you go for 5 seasons on one show, you have sort of actors that you already know, and over 5 seasons worth of hiring guest cast, you start to not be able to hire the same people that you once hired in season 1 and 2, and so you start, which is a great thing, you start branching out even more than you were to begin with because you need to always be finding new people to populate the world. So the people that you know are your go-to super funny guy or your go-to super funny set of people. By the time you get to episode 128 or whatever it was, a lot of the people that you know and love have now already been established in your world. And especially when we do a spin-off of a world that's already established, then you have that many episodes of the first show, and now you're spinning off into a new season that's the same exact world or the same exact town. And so all those people that you've hired before, you still can't go back to them. So there's pros and cons to it, but it's great because you're constantly having to dig even deeper and find people that you never met before, or go find people in local theater that don't even have reps, and then you're able to bring them in, and so it changes because you have to get a little bit more creative.
That's what Barbie was saying. Yeah.
And in our case, and I think in most cases, after we put the series regulars together, there was a trust between us and our 2 showrunners. There was Matthew Carlson and then the creator of the show, Heather Wordham. It was her first show on her own. And sitting in that room with her for 6 or 7 weeks, we developed a lot of trust. And so when we would come in with guest cast and say, this is the guy, she really trusted. And it was a wonderful collaborative experience. And I think a lot of us probably have that, where you go to the mat for that person and the producer says, all right, if that's,
And there's also the other end of that is you learn their taste when you're working for somebody long enough, or with somebody, or you start to learn what they're not going to respond to, and you stop bringing that person in.
Yeah.
Or you keep trying and trying and trying.
Keep trying and trying, and then you get the clue.
Yeah.
How is the audition process different for under 18 actors and over 18 actors?
After 3 p.m.
I think it's pretty
That's the biggest
similar.
difference.
I think Danielle and I cast just as many under as we do over. Our shows are pretty divided, and it's pretty much the same. A lot of our shows are like the 100, and a couple of our shows, like On My Block, the kids are supposed to be in high school, but they're all like in their 20s and a lot older. But so we're used to casting older to have to play younger for adult situations that these quote kids are in. But yeah, we treat them the same, and yeah, all the material is just as tough, and the kids oftentimes do a lot better than the adults. They're oftentimes more prepared, I would say, on average.
I think it's also interesting when you're casting kids how much they change from audition to audition. With adults, you kind of have, they've been working at this for usually a long time, and you have a 9-year-old come in and audition for something, and he's, you think, okay, I see potential there, and then it might be the very next time you see him, he blows you away. Or it could take 2 more years, and you just keep trying and trying and trying. So that's, to me, interesting with doing kids versus adults. Adults, you kind of know what you're getting into when you see them one time. When you see them again, you're probably going to get a similar take because they're already developed into who they are as an actor, or most of the time. But with kids, it's, we'll see a kid one year and the next year they're completely different and completely ready now.
Sometimes they've done one commercial and they come in with a different energy, and it's a different person than you saw 6 months ago or 3 months ago.
Amber, you mentioned being prepared. I want to know what the term being prepared means to all of you, because there's many different levels and facets to that.
Yeah, like knowledge is power, and just educating yourself on as much material that you're given. Oftentimes the entire script is not available. For some of our features, the entire script isn't available. If it is, you should definitely read it or have your parent read it to you if you're a child. And being off book as much as possible. We show these tapes to our producers, and if you're looking down and your head's in the paper the whole time, when we watch that back on camera, that's never a really good look, just seeing the top of your head. So being as off book as possible, and then we can engage with you and connect with you when you're off book. So knowing the material.
And it also helps you understand the character that you're reading for. I always tell people, you should do what we do and read the other side of the scene, just so you know the emotions that you're supposed to be giving to your scene partner.
And stage direction. There's a lot of times where we see the actor come in only even reading the lines that are scripted that people will read out loud, and they forget that there's a whole world going on in the stage direction. And that's just as important in your preparation as knowing what's happening in the scene, not just what you're going to say.
And one trick,
also-
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's also very important with existing shows to catch a couple minutes. Get the tone of the show. There's Disney and Nickelodeon shows that are big, broad, over the top, and then there's those that are more grounded. And people think Disney and Nick, and they just go wild, and that's not necessarily the tone. So it's doing your homework, and it literally, it could be 5 minutes of homework of just taking a look and catching the tone of the show.
Yeah, and one other trick too I tell actors is a lot of times if other characters are posted on Showfax and you have a Showfax account, you can download the other sides and kind of piece together the episode, which will give you more backstory and more understanding of what the character's relationship is to the other characters, which sometimes can help if you're really in the dark about a character and there's like very little description. It's like, boy, 12 years old, and that's it. And you're
Maybe it's a show that hasn't aired yet, so you
right.
won't be able to.
And you
to
can't watch anything. Yeah, that helps a lot.
And it's a good cheat, too.
Yeah, it's a real good
If there's
cheat.
no script available, get as many
Download
sides
as
as
many, yeah.
possible.
A lot of you kind of touched upon the collaborative nature of the casting process. How much of who you bring in is influenced by the rest of your office?
I think that we're pretty open to suggestions from our associates, and particularly if they've gone to see a show and they come back and it's a show we haven't seen and they're suggesting, oh, this person, I saw this person in a show, they're amazing, you should see them. Or that if they've worked on a previous show and know them from there and we haven't met them yet. Absolutely.
And we get suggestions from other places too, from the network, from agents that we know, from managers, or even sometimes we'll have friends who, maybe they're a stand-in on our show and they saw the script for this week's episode and they have a best friend who's perfect for it. Sometimes those are the perfect people. It's somebody that we've never met before. I can think of several examples, or an assistant director on our show. We have an AD on our show who has recommended a couple actors to us who she's known from past projects, and they come in and they just nail it, and we wouldn't have known to bring in that, we didn't even know that person. So we love anybody who we know has a good understanding of what is needed for the character. Any suggestions are always welcome.
I am an associate still, so I'm always encouraged to give suggestions. Every boss I've worked for so far will always take a couple of my ideas and say, yes, they're great, or I don't know if they're right, but why don't you go ahead and read them and I'll watch it and we'll find out. And it works. The collaborative effort is really what gets things going, because we're all watching different things and going to different shows and experiencing different things.
Absolutely, yeah. We try to encourage everyone in our office to speak up. We were even asking our intern today, like, who would she watch in a movie?
We were surprised too. It was interesting.
You never know where that person's going to come from. You talk to the PA, hey, who are your talented actor friends? And you have to be this whole panel. You have to I feel the same way, completely open. We don't care where the talent comes from as long as we find it.
Yeah, and what Danielle was talking, we were doing doing a list for like a big studio film, and they want like 20-year-olds, but we wanted to know who our intern, she's in college, like who she thinks of as a big name to her, because it might be different than like the studio executives who they think is. So we wanted to know like who do the college kids, like who would you run to go see in a movie, which was always fun to ask.
How are you able to find new talent? Do you have time to go and see shows? Do you take that opportunity when you can?
Absolutely. I love theater, and I go to as much of it as I can, which is not that much, but I do go. I've gone to theater. I've gone to school plays. There's been actors who have said, hey, I'm in this thing. We're constantly going and searching wherever it is you want to go. You absolutely want to go and find it.
Yeah, a lot of stand-up shows, improv shows, because especially for multicam and single cam comedy, knowing that you have that improv background really helps us be comfortable putting you on a set where the script could change constantly, or maybe you are asked to improv in the scene, which happened on shows I've worked on.
Also from watching TV and movies. If I'm watching a show and I don't recognize an actor, it bothers me. So then I like immediately research who is this, who cast this show, how do they know this person? I have to know all that.
Yeah, I had a 14-year-old invite me to his community theater in Culver City, and I went to go see it. It was Rent, and he was the star of the show. And then a year and a half later, we were doing zombies. I was like, oh, I know the perfect zombie. I saw this kid in this musical, and brought him in, or begged him to tape, but he wasn't acting anymore. He didn't want to do it. And he ended up getting cast as the lead in Zombies. But this was just from me seeing like his community high school, like it was a community performance. It wasn't even high school. He was like 14 at the time. But so that's just, we go to community theater all the time, and not even like high school theater, just like kids doing the local play around the corner. Yeah.
For the newer actor, can you still see good acting through nerves?
Yeah.
You can see the talent for sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can book the role. Particularly,
Means they'll get asked back to audition
absolutely.
more because you can see the potential. But if the nerves are too much there, especially for just a guest cast role, let's say, then it becomes too much to overcome in a short amount of time. But they'll definitely be something we'll start tracking.
What is it that makes you want to bring an actor back?
Being prepared.
Nice person.
Yes, friendly. I like to say being the best guest at the dinner party. Walking in, being prepared, having a smile, even if I'm frazzled, just
We got to feel like you're having fun.
Yeah, enjoying it.
And then we'll have fun. Yeah. If it's stressful to you, or if it seems like the worst day of your life, it's not. I mean, why are we going to have you back? Right?
And sometimes people come in with nerves, and you talk to them as a person for a few seconds, and they drop that, and they say, "Oh, it's my first audition." We're a lot of people's first audition, and I say, "You never have to have a first audition ever again." And they're like, "Okay." And then sometimes you'll get it, and then the other thing we'll do sometimes is we'll say, "Hey, why don't you go out and take a couple more minutes with this and come back in?" And then we'll read them again, because if you see a nugget of something, you want to see what you can draw out. We'll even tell an actor, go home, sit with it for a few days. We'll see you again on Saturday with the same material.
Can actors feel empowered to say to you, I need that more time? Can you read someone? I'll come back in once I've sit with this for a few more minutes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think all of us would say we appreciate if an actor stops themselves quickly. Don't get to the end of a 3-page scene and say, "Oh, that was bad. Can I do that again?" But if you realize you're on the wrong track, it is your time, and you could either say, "Hey, let's start again," or, "You know what, can I have a minute?" And I don't think anybody on this panel would say, "Oh, no, you can't have a minute." We all root for you to do well, and however we can do that.
And for nerves, make sure that when you're in the room with us, it's not the first time you're saying this out loud. You should always
Yes.
say it out loud with somebody else, even if it's just like your doorman. find somebody to just read the scene with out loud.
You could absolutely tell when an actor has it all figured out in their mind, but they haven't heard themselves say the words yet. You can see it in their face that they're hearing themselves for the first time, and they're not sure how they feel about what they're hearing. So make sure you're always saying it out loud.
Read it to your dog if you have to.
I think it's always good to record yourself, like video record yourself before you go in. Even with like your camera phone, just set it on the ledge and record yourself, read with your dog or read with whoever. Because when you see yourself back, you'll go, oh, that's where the joke is. Because often after like the 30th time of reading someone, I'll even learn where the joke is more. Because, so like what Danielle was saying, flip the roles and read the other role if you can. Because oftentimes you'll discover things about your character by just hearing someone bad read your role, right? So reading with someone who's not an actor, your parent or someone hear it, you're like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be. Yeah, then show us how it's supposed to be. That can really help you. And also recording yourself, you'll notice like there's some things that you would never wear in an audition. Like we're zooming in this tight on you and you'll notice like sleeveless top or off the shoulder. You'll be like, oh, it looks like I'm not wearing a top or something like that. You'll make some wardrobe decisions just based on what you look like watching yourself back.
And you'll notice all your nervous tics, like if you touch your hair like I do, or the nervous things that people just. There are people that are slappers. They just slap their energy right out of the room. So you'll notice that if you record.
We've had a few. I call them lizards.
Swayers?
Well, swayers too,
yeah.
They
Yeah, or
do,
you'll notice
the swayers,
you'll sway.
the people on the boats, but it's the lick. I'm like, what is that? Stop licking.
Chap lips.
What are some of the other ways you draw that nervous actor where you think they can just almost get there? How do you help them get there in the room if you can?
I make them do jumping jacks.
Yeah, shake it out. We do that sometimes.
Or sometimes give them a totally different direction. Just get them out of their head and throw it in a totally different direction.
What are some of the ways that actors sabotage their self in the room?
Over apologizing. Coming in and say, I'm so sorry, I just got this material yesterday. I'm so sorry, I barely know it, but I'm gonna hold it in my hand. I'm so sorry, I messed up that line. And now you're in your head and you're just apologizing and it's taking away from your performance.
Not to mention, I'm now thinking to myself,
Yeah.
so you're telling me right now this is going to be awful.
Stop watching.
Great. Can't wait.
Yeah,
And
it's
also-
gonna be awful and unprepared.
Everyone else got it yesterday too.
I also think when you say I just got the material, I'm like, yeah, so did I. That's why I'm casting it today. Okay.
Somehow I have this memorized and I'm not auditioning for it.
Do your interactions with parents and guardians affect your casting decisions?
Yes.
Depends on how the interactions
and
go.
no. Yes,
all got
and
stories.
I will say yes for sure. For me, yes, because I take a look at the parents and I have to know that that parent is going to become a part of our family. And
it also depends on what we're talking about, a series regular or
okay,
a
sure.
co-star.
even a co-star, they're going to come and be part of our family for the day.
What can a parent do to help set their young performer up for success?
Listen to their young performer.
Yeah.
And their young performer's needs and what they need to better themselves as an actor. Some of us need a parent who's on top of us and making sure we're doing everything. Hey, did you practice that? Hey, are you off book? Some of us need a parent who takes a step back and is not super involved in every little thing because it puts a pressure on their child. So really listen to your actor and see what they want out of their career and what they need to help themselves.
I think it's also really important, this is for all actors, not just young actors, but to not make acting your entire life and to just make sure that you have other things to make you a well-rounded person, because everything else in life, sports or playing an instrument or whatever, school, will help you be a better actor in the long run.
If there's a young person that we've met and we've liked, a lot of times we'll go out and chat with the parents and just kind of see who they are and see, because it would be awful to have a producer say, the kid was great, but oh, that mom. And to be fair, you only hear the bad stories. There's a lot of wonderful parents in the business who are supportive of their child and or children.
And one thing for parents is you really should always on set try to keep an eye on your child, be able to always see them like with an eye distance or on the monitor or somewhere, especially with like stunts and stuff. We've had some fun experiences we've heard about that you just always want to make sure you can see them. Safety.
You mentioned stunts. I'm actually really curious what the audition process is when you're bringing in an under 18 actor who is going to be performing a stunt.
Well, yeah, they're usually not ever performing a stunt. There's stunt doubles or stunt people. But like if they're in like a stunt vehicle or something and they're saying, oh, you know, making sure that the parent can see the stunt vehicle and see the child after and things like that.
Yeah, I'm currently working on a procedural that has some very intense moments, and you know, we always make clear if there's a young actor who is doing something where the scene is a little intense, to really note that, and we're totally okay if you want to pass on not coming in because that makes you feel a certain way.
Many young actors today are coming in with skills like singing and dancing and sports on top of acting. Is there an increasing expectation for actors to be double, triple threats?
I think it depends on the project. There are certainly projects where they're going to be needing to have all the skills that they can possibly have. They're singing shows, dancing shows, whatever. But it's not imperative for every show.
And we're just looking for the best fit for that exact role every time. It's not, you know, in general, we're tracking kids who have singing ability, who have dancing ability for when the role comes up. But in general, you know, if we see 5 kids and it's a role where singing and dancing is not necessary and 4 of them can dance and 1 of them can, and that's the best actor, that's the one we're going for. So I don't think there's any increased expectation that they should all be able to sing and dance. We're just in the casting specifically for acting, that's all you're looking for is just the very best prepared, best fit for this part, regardless of any other of their skills.
And, you know, for us, we also care very much about them as people and what they do in their lives. And if we get a call, he has a baseball game at 3 o'clock and that doesn't hurt our, you know, we don't have a producer session or something, we'll always let the kids go. And the kids that read, you know, happy kids that aren't just focused on that audition of that day are the kind of kids that book.
I want to pivot a little bit to talk about self-tapes because it is such a huge industry trend. What is the best way for an actor of any age to stand out on a self-tape for you?
Look at the camera.
Yeah, the easy things. Audio needs to work.
We get so many tapes of people making the reader the most important person in the room. Like the reader will be over here, but the camera is here. So we're getting the side of your face. We're getting tapes from Colorado and all those places. And just, you can go a little to the left and a little to the right. You don't have to go down the barrel, but play to the camera so we see all of your reactions.
I think that's a hard thing for actors to understand, is that we actually want to see your face, and that your talent is, you know, it comes from spirit inside and it comes beaming out your face through your eyeballs. And if we cannot see your eyes, we can't see the connection. We can't see the talent. So we need to see your face.
Yeah, right next to the camera. Like if she's the camera, put the reader right there so you're right next to the camera.
And when you're self-taping, I think there's a fine line of making sure you are very prepared, completely off book, totally into your character choices. We want to see this self-tape be exactly what you're going to do when you step out on our stage and perform, because presumably we're going to guess you've done this 20 times and you're sending us your very best take. You have that luxury when you're at home. So don't send us your one take that you did where you weren't off book and your cat meowed in the middle of it and then your brother slammed the door and then you cut the tape because it was an awkward take and then you picked right back up again. If we're watching a self-tape, we're expecting it to be a level of preparedness that you sometimes can't even do when you come into the audition room. But then there's the fine line where you also don't want it to be so over-prepared and so over-rehearsed that we're now nervous that this performance took you 80 takes to do, and what's it gonna be like when you walk on stage and are given a piece of direction? Are you gonna be able to take it? So there's sort of a fine line with self-tapes where we're looking for someone who's fully prepared, but also will be able to take notes on the fly.
And make sure you watch it back and you're proud of it. Like, make sure it's something you want us to see. And that sounds like that should be common sense.
But see it and know that it could go to, if that's the tape that we love, it could go to the producers. It could go to the director. It could be the first call, what used to be first call, callback, producer session. That could be the tape.
We talk about
it
that
could be
all
the
the
test.
time. Yeah.
This could be the test.
Yeah, we talk about that now. It used to be that they would come into the, actors would come into the audition room and they'd have their pre-read with the casting team, whoever it is, and then they'd get all these opportunities to grow their character and get stronger and make stronger choices and get more off book and become more prepared as the callbacks went along. And now sometimes self-tape's a perfect example. If you live in New York and we're based in California and we're only flying you out for the test, that tape that you've sent us sometimes can become all those callbacks that you normally would have all those chances with. And honestly, the same thing when you come into the audition room nowadays, because we can tape you and because we have the opportunity to present that tape that we took of you to our producers 10 minutes after you leave the room, they're expecting a level of professionalism from your audition that they're going to be comfortable saying, we want him to come walk out on stage tomorrow and do this exact performance. And if you're still off book and you still haven't made strong choices and you still haven't done this or that, there's no opportunity to change sometimes because of how fast paced everything is with technology.
And our office is very pro not spending money on self-tapes, not going to facilities, doing a point and shoot in your home. There's like those light kits for like $70 off Amazon, and that it breaks our hearts when we hear somebody spent $150 to then send us a self-tape. If somebody doesn't like the quality or somebody looks at it and says, we like you, then you can go for the big director and make a nice, beautiful film. But most of the time, we get what we need off a point and shoot with a smartphone.
Yep, and I'm a big fan of the piece of by a blue sheet, a light blue sheet. You can tape it to the wall behind you.
Or there's a collapsible, what we have in our office, that collapsible, it's really hard to put back in the bag, but it's like a collapsible green screen on the other side is blue, and you just put it up on a stand. It was super cheap on Amazon.
Yeah, we get sad when people spend money also.
Just use your phone.
How much of a tape do you watch, and at what point do you know either this actor might be right or they're not right at all?
We have very different answers for this.
I teach a whole class on this. I think that you have about 30 seconds to really someone makes a decision if they're going to watch it all the way through. I think you have a good 30 seconds. And that's a long time, 30 seconds, if you really tape it. Sometimes I'll show actors in a group 3 tapes, and we'll watch. These 3 girls booked leads of pilots that same year. They're all about 16 years old. And they're all doing really well. Sydney Sweeney's one of them, one of the tapes that I show. And all 3 girls that year booked their own lead of their show. And actors always like, oh, it comes down between me and so all the time. I'm always like put on hold, or I'm always one of, a few. And I never get the job. So I wanted to show when everything was switching over to self-tapes, because we've been doing this all about 20 years now. We've seen the transition between people coming in person and self-tapes and really notice what works and what's different. And about 30 seconds, every week in 1 hour episodic television, we have a different director. And oftentimes we would send the DVDs around to their houses at night through messenger services, and they wouldn't watch them. So I would pop the DVD in or pull up the email or whatever, and they'd have to watch them like at our desk. And about 20, 30 seconds in, if they weren't really paying attention, they would look to the next person, right? So I show these 3 actors, and the thing that all 3 of them did a little bit differently is one of them, the one that the audience picks at the end, because I make them all casting directors, so I'm like, okay, which one of these 3 would you guys cast? And it's really like, who makes you feel the most? So who makes you feel excited or sad or scared? The ones that make it about them. So when you're auditioning, you really have to realize that you're having to figure out how to make it the best audition. The scripts and the sides that you're given, they're not written for an audition usually. And the guy that she worked for years, the king of her castle, used to write audition sides just for auditions. So she had like amazing audition sides. Dan Schneider did. But for the most of us, we just pull sides from scripts that were written to be shot on like stages. And so when we would do like a shot, like they were filming this room, it would be shoot this and then shoot this. And then if we were auditioning you in the white sweater, it would just be on you for like 5 minutes. Well, no one really wants to watch you the entire time for 5 minutes unless in the first 30 seconds you're making me, the viewer, feel something and want to keep watching you. And so with these 3 girls, the one that they would always pick is the one right away in that first 30 seconds. She really does a good job of making the person that she's reading with feel something very specific before she moves on. And every time it happens. So that's my opinion. I think 30 seconds.
I say 30 seconds too, and what I have said about that whole process is actors need to remember that the best actors don't act. They listen and they react. And I find that when the self-tape, when I'm watching self-tapes and I can see that that person is actually listening, even if the reader is not a good reader, you can really tell when they're really listening and really paying attention and responding to what they've heard, instead of what you were saying, make it all about yourself. It's really interesting to watch, but I might even say 20 seconds.
And I feel like sometimes, depending on what it is, especially for multi-camera kids shows where it's really important that they have good diction and good volume and good energy, we can sometimes tell from the slate. By the time the slate is over, I'm like, you're not speaking clearly, you don't have energy, you don't understand the feeling of this show already just from your slate. And 99% of the time when they begin their scene, we're right. Yeah, initially from the slate already, their energy, their diction, and this is mostly with children because adults, it's not really that like that. But you can tell sometimes that they're not prepared just by not having a prepared slate, which is interesting.
I would also say to pay attention to the instructions in your self-tape email.
You mean read?
Because if you don't follow all the instructions, it just causes a lot more work for us and the people in our office. Little things like make everything a separate file, or put the slate at the end, or some offices want it at the beginning. Put everything, we have a list of things. If we're having people self-tape, there's a lot of things we need to know about you. It's all on the slate, it's all in the instructions. And sometimes we get just the name, and we know your name. So pay attention. We're writing those instructions for a very specific reason. Please read the emails. That's emails, all
Read.
of it. Please.
Especially I'd have to imagine height because it can vary so differently when you're...
Passport, half of our shoots shoot in Vancouver.
Yeah, we need to know where you based. All sorts of stuff is in that email. I promise you, it's fun.
What happens in LA a lot is people will slate as if they live here. And you come in the next morning and you're like, okay, I've picked these 5 people to meet. And then you find out one's in Texas, one's in Arizona. And it's really frustrating. And we've talked to the agents and managers about this, and a lot of kids are bi-coastal. They're like, oh, I live in Colorado in LA, but I'm in Colorado until February. So that's really important, is to be honest with where you are.
Yeah, say it on the tape.
Say it all on the
but
tape.
I'm based in
Willing
Arkansas.
to shave that beard, all of it.
Yeah. We'll still consider you, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I'm based in Arkansas. I'll be in LA on February 1st.
For those kids who are out of state and possibly represented, what's the best way for them to get on your radar? Do you look at mail, postcards, self-submissions?
No, with the postcards. Isn't that a dying breed, the postcard in general? No postcards. Don't waste your money. Anything that you're wasting, like if you're wasting money, it makes us sad. Yeah. Don't waste your money.
Does anyone here look at postcards?
I look at them.
We look at all of
Send
them,
them the postcards.
but we say that every time when we flip over the postcard that we see. We go, there went their $1. We could have seen this exact same thing on social media.
And if you are going to send postcards, don't send 3 to an office, to each person in the office. From the beginning of time, 2 get ditched and 1 gets kept. So you're spending money, and it's unfortunate. We share.
Yeah, Jamie doesn't need a different one than me.
I go like this. Did you get this one? Yep. Great.
Jamie mentioned social media. How important is social media following?
I have
and
all kinds of different opinions.
Well, and when I said social media, that to me had absolutely nothing to do with their following, just more to do with, we have a presence on, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So we see just as much when people are posting stuff on our wall saying, hey, check this out, watch this. We see that just as frequently as we do the postcard. As far as what your social media following is and how that affects us, it totally depends on the job. The shows that we do right now, it's completely irrelevant. You could have 1 million followers or you could have 1 follower. If you're funny and you're the right person for this part, you're getting the job.
But that's just right now.
That's
in this
just us
project,
right now.
yeah.
I'm sure other people here could say the exact opposite, that it's very important. I'm
It's
not
a
sure.
project specific. We worked on a project for Legendary Digital, and when we started that project, they were like, both leads need to have at least 2 million followers. That's our base. That was their base, and they were
several years
honest.
ago, too.
Yeah, and they were honest from the get-go. But for the most part, TV, movies, it's not about that.
Aside from following, how important is it how an actor presents themselves on social media, especially for these Disney shows, Nickelodeon shows that attract a younger audience?
Don't be naked.
Keep it clean.
And don't be creepy. We have to do Google scrubs on everybody that's on
Yeah,
a
it
Disney show or
matters.
Nickelodeon show. So
It
don't
matters
be a
what you're
creep.
putting out there.
And
Don't be a creep anyway.
Be careful yourselves. What you have on Facebook that somebody like Danielle was saying. We do Google searches, so if there's stuff out, clean it up because you partying on your picture on Facebook isn't necessarily
Also, if you said something that might be a little blue or off color in 2005, it's still on the internet, and they will find it, and
We've had
you will not get
producers-
hired again.
Yeah, we've had producers come to us and we, if we hadn't seen the post, it'll be somebody who's recurring on one of our shows and they'll come to us and say, hey, did you read this political post by this person? And point it out to us. And then, that's not something that the people on the set who they are then having to work with, if they have different opinions and your opinions are very strong and offensive, that's not going to help you get asked back on set if they're worried that your political opinions are so strong or it doesn't even have to be politics, but your opinions about something are so strong that they are offensive. No, that affects how people are going to want to interact with you, and that affects you coming back and working your job again. It's
think
just like
about it.
anything else.
We get
so easy to find.
Yes, so
we
easy
get
to
we get thousands of submissions per role. Okay, thousands. So you want to be the best guest at the dinner party, right? You don't want to bring all your baggage with you. Everyone's got baggage, but just leave it at home.
And behave, totally off topic, but behave on set because producers talk. They see your resume and they're, oh, my buddy Bill worked. And they get on the phone, oh, really? She wasn't behaving. That stuff goes around. You can't even imagine how that stuff spreads.
And don't lie. Don't put something on there that
No,
you
it
didn't
spreads
do.
so quickly. I think that's one of the funniest things that actors don't know is that we're actually friends. Maybe we're interviewing for the same job. It doesn't matter. We're friends too. So if I see that somebody has worked on one of Amber's shows and I'm interested in this person for whatever, we have oftentimes called each other and been like, hey, I'm looking at this kid. What do you think? Or what was your experience? Or what happened? We talk to each other and we're friends. So
I've even called casting directors I don't know just to do
we have to.
reconnaissance.
Yeah.
And it's sad when that actor is an amazing actor and was brilliant at their part, and Krisha calls Amber, and Amber tells her that this person was late every single day and was rude to the assistant directors, or this didn't really happen. I'm using it as an example. Amber's like, oh God, I did.
How dare they?
But you can
this
imagine
child.
it happens on our set. It happens with we hear it all the time. There'll be an actor that we loved them in the audition process and we loved what they did when we actually edited it together on tape. And then we'll hear that they were just an absolute nightmare. So how can we, in good conscience, go to the next project and bring that actor back and bring them into a different fold of like Krisha said, these people are our family. When we bring actors onto the set, we're introducing them to our family. So we can't in good conscience know that this person on the last set that we brought them onto was a nightmare, and now they're a really good actor though, so here you go again. Even if you're great, we can't do that. It's our job to protect our family on our set.
How often should a young actor update their promotional materials, and does it differ by age?
You mean like an EPK?
Everybody
No, I mean like
ages differently, so it's really hard to give
headshots because they're changing.
Oh,
over-
like how often get new headshots when they're a kid?
over 18 actors are traditionally told get new headshots every year, 2 years. With young actors, is it different?
Yeah, if your look dramatically changes. So if you have a big growth spurt or you have a big hair change or braces or a big life change, then I would say get new pictures. But
And your representation should be whoever your agent or manager is, assuming you have an agent or manager, that person's a great person to be the guide for that. If you don't, then you have to take it upon yourself to decide, have I changed enough that if I walk in the room, this won't be the person that they think they're calling in.
Sorry.
Every year seems excessive.
You want to look like your picture. As Jamie was saying, you don't want to be looking for a 10-year-old and then this 13-year-old 5'10" comes in the room. It's a waste of time for them. You know?
And some kids, look the same from 9 to 14, so they don't need to take another headshot. Why waste the money? You look identical to how you did 3 years ago, but some kids change in 6 months.
What advice do you have for actors who don't have many credits but are looking to gain more experience?
Work. There's no excuse anymore for actors not to be working because you can create it. The internet and YouTube and the communities that are available that do not cost anything. Write a little bit. Go practice it with people that are in your class. Go film it. Be constantly figuring out ways to be creative and work. If you want to be a creative, be creative. I just don't find that there's any reason not to. And I really don't think there's any excuse not to. If you wanted to be, I use hockey because I come from Canada. The hockey players that I know, you're not going to be in the NHL, but they're on the ice 5 days a week. If you think of any sport that you play or any other type of art that you do, I know parents will pay all kinds of money to have their kids in. I'm going to use hockey. It's thousands and thousands of dollars in equipment and travel and this and that and everything. And I ask them if they think their kid's going to be an NHL player, and they're like, no. But the 1 hour once a week that they have them in a class for acting, they think they're going to be a professional actor. I just don't understand the rationale behind it. Act. If you want to be acting, act.
And it's a muscle, just like anything else. Like she's saying, if you want to go try, I always say audition on accident. If you want to audition to be in the NBA, if you want to try out to be in the NBA, like Krisha said, you're not, the people who are trying out and being taken seriously play ball all day, every day. It's their entire life, and they exercise that muscle every single day. So for an actor to want to be taken seriously and not practicing the art of acting and not exercising their acting muscle, it's silly. It's some people can do it if they're just like born that way and naturally they just can walk into a room, but most people, it's something you have to practice.
I would also say change it up. If you're in, first of all, you should always be in classes, in improv, whatever, doing something to keep it the wheel oiled, but change it up, because sometimes people are in acting classes and like they get very comfortable with their group and everybody loves each other and they're all supportive and maybe they're tough, but it's tough love, but sometimes it's all love, and sometimes you need to be a little bit scared and try something a little bit new in a new class with new people just to discover something new about yourself too.
Yeah, I think the best actors make a strong choice when they come in a room, but they also have the ability to adjust and change what that choice might be based on what the casting director or the producer or the director sees in their head. So really that willingness to change and grow with the art form really helps.
What are some of the difficulties that young actors face today that they didn't face, say, 10 years ago?
Well, there's a lot more, Hollywood's open to a lot more people. My husband actually was a child actor, so I'm 40, and he just turned 40. So he did it till I guess he was about 13, but he said that he would go on auditions and there would only be like 10 kids up for the same, like The Good Boy or The Good Son, and like really big features. There would be like 10 boys being considered, and he knew all their names. They all knew each other and saw the same kids over and over, and that's not the case anymore.
Especially because all of the agents, as I was saying, when we don't know people from Texas and all of that, all of the agents are out there scouting and signing kids and everywhere they possibly can. Canada, Australia, they represent kids from everywhere.
Yeah, the competition is just much more than it ever was before because there's opportunity that was never there before. There was a kid in Missouri who his parents had no connection to anything in the industry and the internet didn't exist and he couldn't, he was hilarious in his hometown, but nobody could ever find him. Now we can find that kid quickly because thanks to the internet, we can, people who can perform.
But the internet also
room.
it leaves you up for being open and out there, which you didn't really have to deal with a long time ago.
Yeah, you were saying what was, I missed the question completely.
Challenges, like what's different
Challenges,
for them, yeah.
I would say that the biggest challenge I think is the social media aspect of it for kids. I think that's a huge challenge because they really think it's real.
Like a life challenge.
Yeah, it's
too.
real.
Yeah,
They think
like
it's
life
real, and I'm like, social
acting.
media is not real. People, every once in a while, even my mother says to me, "You posted this." I'm like, social media is not real. It's a curated. It's like a painting. I've curated this image, and that's what I'm putting on social media. And I think all kids do it, but they believe that it's real, and it's not. It's hard.
And I especially want to ask you, Jamie, because you have experience as a young actor. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew then?
Great question. My by far answer is I really had no concept that the casting director or directors or the people who are auditioning you wanted you to get the job. As a young actor, in my mind, for some reason, they didn't want me to get it, and I had to prove to them that I could. And as soon as I got on this side of it, and the first, round of auditions goes through, it all of a sudden occurred to me, like, every single time someone walks in the door, I'm going, oh my God, please be good. Please be good. Please be good. Okay, that was great. Let's try this, and this to make it even better because I want you to book this. And we do that with every single person that comes in the room because the second we find the person for the role, we've done our job and we get a pat on our back and we get a great job. You're great at your job.
Yeah, our new assistant was like, I had no idea you guys give like acting classes during auditions. We're like, oh yes, we do.
Oh yes.
And I don't think actors, a lot of actors realize that we need you as much as you need us.
Sometimes more.
Absolutely more.
And never take it
We're
personally.
there to say yes, not no.
And when we're up here
Can't take
being,
it personally. It's almost every time. It's just somebody else was just more right. It's not that they were better. It's not that it's not
a
anything
hard
but
concept.
Yeah, it's just that they happen to be more right for that specific role in that specific showrunner or director's mind. It could be a totally different person if there was different people involved.
Yeah, like she was saying earlier, if we set up 3 different showrunners, they might all pick someone different. Yeah. For the same character.
For the same script.
Yeah.
I want to take some time to ask some audience questions before we run out of time. I have one right here from Bernadette from Philly. Wants to know, what's the best way to keep in touch? If we get pinned but don't book, should we let you know?
No, you just be good. Be good at what you do, and we'll find you. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I think the keep in touch is a tough one because people want to let us know what they're doing and what they're up to. And I do think that social media seems to be the best method of communicating where we can still see it, but it's not intrusive into our day and into what we've got going on.
What can sometimes be obtrusive is when somebody emails you and you never gave them your email address. They just keep guessing around. It feels a little invasive. Do you know, we put out almost every role we do on Actors Access, and we call people in from that. And we try to bring in as many adults and kids, new people, and trying to find new people as possible. So it's difficult, the keeping in touch part.
That's amazing she does that. Do you realize what she does? She puts all the roles on Actors Access. Like, that's awesome.
I think that's really amazing, actually.
That's
I mean, we do
amazing.
it sometimes, but I don't do it all the time.
That's really awesome.
And kind of a follow-up on that.
We can't do that because there's so many actors that they believe that they can be a green Martian. I'm telling you.
Yeah, even like we put a role in Actors Access last week for like older Nana, like 80-year-old lady, and we were getting like young 20-year-olds submitting.
Oh, and that's the other thing is don't take advantage. If you see something on Actors Access for an 8-year-old and you're 40 and you submit, it's unfair, just to take advantage of. Oh, let me see you,
Ashley Parchment wants to know, what's the best way to build relationships with you as casting?
I will say that we always sort of have at least a moment in the room where we're like, "Hi, how are you?" That's the moment. That's the moment. When I work with kids, I specifically tell them, when you hear that question, that's your chance to answer the question. In polite society, we all say, "I'm fine, thanks, how are you?" And then it's over. So when you have an opportunity to say something, say something.
My favorite story was we had this woman come in one time and we asked that exact question, just, hey, how's it going? How are you? And she goes, I'm good. And she's funny and fun and all of it. She goes, "Oh, I'm good because my rat infestation is gone. I'm not going to get into the story, but it's gone. I'm great." And naturally, we're like, what is the story? What do you mean your rat infestation is gone? So she's like, okay, I'm just going to tell you briefly. And she gives us this little bit. And so the little bit was just a nugget enough to where we're like, okay, wait, hold on. We need more. Go back, tell more of the story. So by the time she's done telling this story about her rat infestation and how she handled it was, like 15 minutes later, I was taking notes on the roll. I realized subconsciously, because I was so enthralled with how funny she was with telling the story and what was going on in her life, that I had marked her as a choice for the role. She hadn't auditioned yet. And I looked at that and I was like, oh my God. And then I'm like, Krisha, we've been here for 15 minutes. There's a lobby full of people out there. We have to continue with our auditions now. So something as silly as that of this, she wasn't attempting to take up our time. She wasn't attempting to tell us this ridiculous story. It was just a natural thing that happened. And we respond to humans who are living their life just like we are. So sometimes it's something as random as their rat infestation that makes us fall in love with them as a person. And then all of a sudden we have that relationship, and every time we come in the room, we have a different bond than we did with the people who said, "I'm fine, thanks."
It's also beyond just the room, being nice in that waiting room to your fellow actors, as well as you don't know if the person who just walked in is actually the casting assistant running the camera. So you just want to really, the second you enter the lot or whatever, the building that you're coming into to audition, you're nice and friendly to everyone. Because if the assistant notices that you were, nothing but courteous or whatever, they're going to say something. And likewise, if they notice you don't, be the most courteous, they're going to say something.
Have you guys ever been cut off or flipped off by an actor who was running late to their audition?
Yes.
So you're auditioning
Yes.
in your office?
Yes.
Or and you both pull up to the lot and you're like, "Oh, hi."
Or my favorite is when I'm at the sign-in and I'm ready to look at who I'm bringing in next, and someone's signing in and they go, "Sorry, I'm doing this." I go, "Okay, I'll wait." And I sit there, and then there's this beautiful moment of they leave the sign-in sheet and it's my turn to call someone, and they feel really embarrassed because they were rude for no reason.
It's fascinating to go sit at your assistant's desk for a minute and see how you're treated, and as opposed to what happens when they walk in the door. We can tell if you're coming in like, "Oh, I'm such a nice," we can tell if you're not.
And that's life, right? That's not even just acting.
Just be a kind human
Just
in life.
be nice to people.
People want to work with people they like. People want to work with people who are nice.
Michelle wants to know, what was the most surprising choice or antic an actor tried in an audition, and did it help or hurt?
Oh, I got a good one. I had a one-line co-star on a futuristic show, and it was for a little girl, like 9 years old, and she had her dog in a bag in her audition, just like in like an open flat backpack, and we did not notice until halfway through the audition when the dog popped out of the bag. And it was so wonderful because like she didn't break character, we didn't mess up the scene, and so we sent that, and the producers loved it so much they were like, "Yeah, that's the girl, the dog girl." Literally, that's how it was written in the email. We choose the dog girl, and we all knew who it was.
I had one recently that was kind of scary. They asked me if they could bring their trunk into the room. It was at the end of the day. I think you were still there, but we do this really wacky, like kind of prank show where the audience votes. It's called Just Roll With It. It's on Disney Channel, and we look for really interesting characters, and we needed people who could dance and be. It was called the Technical Difficulty Dinosaur. So we were doing a live show on the Disney Channel. So if anything went wrong in the show, we needed this technical difficulty dinosaur to be able to dance really well. So all I was looking for were hip hop dancers. So this man came in and he said, "I need to bring my trunk in." I'm thinking, oh, he has a costume change, whatever. It was like 8 o'clock at night. He comes in with the trunk, and then he puts on a boombox, and out pops the trunk. You know those Chinese dragons? Another person popped out of the trunk, and they did a full Chinese dragon thing. And our room is only from here to probably the end of the stage. And there was another man at the end of the Chinese dragon. So there was one man, and then they did the whole thing, and I was like blown away. I took a million pictures of it. I couldn't believe. I thought I was being punked because our same producers did like a prank show. I was like, where are the cameras?
One of my favorites was it's also a self-tape. And it's why I tend to watch them all to the end, because in the self-tape, I'm watching her, and this actress, and she's good, and she's from Australia, and she's, I'm liking what she's doing. And at the very end, there's a scene in the script where the character is just going over a breakup, and she's crying and eating icing and singing along to Toni Braxton. And this girl just put on the Toni Braxton song and just started eating frosting out of the can and crying and laughing. And like, it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And she did wind up getting the job because she took that chance, which I wouldn't necessarily say would work every time, but she was so committed to it that it really worked for her.
One of my favorites was we got a call from an agent saying, the mom can't find childcare. Can she bring her baby? And we always say, yeah, we're child friendly. Of course, bring your baby. And so she was holding the baby as she was reading. And it was a producer session, and the baby started to fuss. So as natural as can be, she started to breastfeed. Well, I have 4 juvenile male producers in the room, and I can see all of them out of the corners of my eyes, and they're dying. And she's wonderful. She is absolutely wonderful in the role. And she booked it. But that image of those juvenile producers just dying. And I had to, keep reading. And it was beautiful, but that was one of my favorite stories.
That's so good.
There's also one thing. Okay, so there's this one actor that used to come in, and when you say, "Do you have any questions?" Name, height. Do you have any questions? And every single time he'd come in, he'd like make a corny joke. He'd make the same corny joke. Yeah, what's the largest state in the country? I'm like, it's Alaska. Next, it's not nobody like planned things like that. Like planned humor, it doesn't go over well when you're in front of a room of judges.
No real weapons. Danielle and I had a knife pulled on us in a session. You were camera, and I was sitting in front of her reading, and he had a switchblade.
We had a director in the room.
The director, thank God someone was in the room with us, and he went like that, and the blade whipped open in the middle of the scene to me. I was so scared. And so then I thought he was going to have to do it again. So I was like, oh, I'll go stand behind the camera. And I got up. I was so scared. But thankfully, the director realized he'd had a few glasses of wine, and he walked him out of the room and asked him not to come back. So that was good. We dodged.
Don't get wasted before your audition.
Yeah. There's two lessons
no
there.
weapons, no alcohol.
Don't drink too much before, and don't bring hosts.
Amira wants to know, besides limited self-submission opportunities, what's the best way to get into your office for auditions during pilot season when you're in between representation?
Be right for the role. Honestly, the get into your office thing is always a little bit funky for me, because the reason you come to our office is because you're right for a role that we're casting, and we don't know what roles we're casting. So I think you could walk into the office at the wrong time, and then it would be wasted, instead of waiting for the right time to walk in when you're right for whatever we're looking for.
I think there's
Don't
also
ever just walk into the office.
Let's be clear about that.
Very clear.
I think there's also this misconception that sometimes in an actor's journey, and it kind of depends on where they're at their journey, but actors, especially when they're starting out, seem to have this misconception that just because they've decided they're going to become an actor, that entitles them to be ready to be auditioned for projects. And that's not always necessarily the case. You can start your acting career without going on any auditions for anything, because you're still working up to be ready, in the same way that we talk about people who are, practicing for sports or their hobbies or whatever. Sometimes you're not ready to audition to be the pianist in the show because you aren't prepared enough for it yet. So it's also trying to figure out, especially for newly starting actors, when is that time that I really am ready to put myself out there and be taken seriously? And remember that what you are asking us to do when you're coming into an audition is we're going to pay you money to do the job that you're going to do. So if you are not fully ready to be doing that yet, then even the audition process isn't necessarily what your step is right now in your journey. So I think
that's
for brand, and that's totally okay. You should be continuing to do whatever phase in your hobby career, whatever you're calling your acting, whatever phase you're at that time, embrace that and fully be comfortable with that before you step into that next thing.
Yeah, British and Australian actors don't come here until they're ready to be professionally called actors. It's a very different profession over there. There's way fewer jobs, and it takes a lot longer to get those jobs and to be recognized for them. So people complain about British actors taking the jobs or Australian actors taking the jobs. They don't come to us until they are 100% ready. It's really far. The visa's really hard to get. There's a lot of steps away from their families. They got to be ready.
And first impressions mean a lot in every sense of life. You know, sometimes I'll have a first impression from somebody who is completely wrong when I find out later that whatever that impression was, that's not who they are at all. But sometimes it's hard to shake that very first impression that that person made, even if it was a miscommunicated impression. So I think having that first impression with a casting director and getting in your audition room when you're not fully ready sometimes can be a hindrance in your journey.
To wrap things up, because unfortunately we are out of time, can everyone share one thing that you'd really like the audience to take away from tonight? One last piece of knowledge to impart.
Don't look at me.
We're rooting for you. Yeah. I think that's a big one. We're rooting for you.
And not only, I think that I love that we're rooting for you for sure, but it's also not just a rooting. It's also like we so want you to be right, and we so want you to book the job. I just because it just happened, Jamie and I really fought hard and almost overstepped with a producer recently about an actor that we felt really passionate about, and pushed and pushed and pushed, almost to the point where, they were like, okay, it's time to be quiet. So and when you come back to the office, if you've been invited to come back and you don't book it, and you come back again and you don't book it, and you come back 15 times, please know that's because we love you and we want you to be right for the roles we're bringing you in for.
I think it's also something like this where we're all up here, being honored for being nominees, for casting a show. The only reason we are in this position of having any amount of success is because we've had wonderful actors that have graced us with their presence in our audition rooms. Without you, we don't have a job. We have to figure out different jobs. Our relationship with actors, and from that question before, I can say this with wholeheartedly, that I was confused, that I didn't realize how much casting directors needed us as actors until I was on the other side. And now I wish I could impart that on every actor, and especially children first starting out, because that's a weird thing to understand, that we need you even more than you need us.
Yeah, we always say thank you for coming. We really mean thank you for showing up. Oftentimes on our session sheet, there's a lot of actors that don't show up, so we're really so happy. Yeah, we get
Even
a lot
confirmed ones don't end up showing up.
We get so many no-shows every day. So we always say, thank you so much for coming. We really all mean it. Thank you so much for coming. And just a quick little thing, my thing I would leave with all of you is just, we all love what we do, is why we pick what we do and why we're here. And just know that we're leading with that too. So we're your biggest fans, and we're also cheering you on. But we really picked this profession because we really enjoy doing it. So that's something to keep in mind.
I would leave with y'all to make sure you're having fun, because when you're not having fun, we're not having fun watching you. And if you're not having fun, even when the heavy drama stuff, you could still enjoy doing it. You got to feel it. You got to enjoy it, because there's a chance you might not make a boatload of money at this profession. You've got to be doing it because you truly do love it and you enjoy doing it just for the craft of it. So just make sure you're in it for the right reasons and you enjoy every step of it, even the hard steps. That's a life lesson. It's part of it. There's going to be a lot of them, a lot of stuff that's going to go hit you the wrong way. So you just got to know that you love it enough to keep rolling with it.
I think just be confident in the choices you make in your career and in your auditions, but also be willing to change based on how things go, whether that's personal change, whether that's changing your read in the audition or whatever, but adaptability will go a long way here.
One other little tidbit. please don't change the performance between your pre-read and producers, because we liked what we saw the first time. And so many times actors will come in and totally do a 180, and we'll be like, wait, when he came in before, he did this. And, you know.
And then he coached way too long, and all of a sudden it's a different performance.
Well, on that note, thank you all for coming.
Thank
you for
having
sharing
us.
your time with us. And wishing you all the best of luck on Thursday night.
Thank you.
Thank you.